Thinking about your muffin. When I wake up, I'm thinking about your muffin. You know our love was 10 times sweeter than candy, 10 times sweeter than cake. Thinking about you. Who is pinging me? Like a food cake. What the heck? Bruh. Hi guys! It's your gal, Juliberry. Happy SBI Sunday. I just took a shower and then immediately put on makeup. Kind of counterintuitive if you ask me. However, Willy Wonka. Danny and I have been writing all day. We wrote all day. I helped a bit, but mostly Danny. But I helped. I will give credit where credit is due. Hello, MT. Hello, Violent. And yes, how are we? Hello, welcome. Sorry, I'm a bit distracted. I kind of forgot to pick out fics to read for you guys today. But it's okay, because I got them. I got them up now. And every day I'm thinking. Angelic and Mochi is alive? Lemao. I'll help out later. Anyways, you're good? I'm glad to hear. Sport and Techno merch. My boy, he's hanging out back there, and we got our... Woo! I should probably ping the Discord saying that, hold on. Twitch. Tommy. Tuesday. Y'all, it's SBI Sunday. Get in here. You're excited? Good. I did choose 2 short ones because I will be reading the second chapter to the Pink Man, and let's just say the word count just went up like 10k. It's now 17k. Yo, whatever made... Hi! Hi, Mel. Hello. I love you too. Welcome to SBI Sunday. My hair looks so frazzled. I swear, I just cleaned it. It looks so nice. It feels and it smells good. Guys, I swear. Honestly, I look better on this side. But today, we're gonna be reading. We're gonna be reading today. And we're just gonna wait for all the people to come in here. Because my Twitch notification, my Discord notification hasn't gone. My fave, retweet to you. But guys, oh, speaking of retweets, guys, 17k, yeah, hello, long fix. This is only the second chapter, but guys, look at my new Twitter banner. Emmy Artsy made this, and then I did this, and then I added like these on the side. It's great. Look, guys, Jenny made fan art for Gray Man. Look at this. Look. Hold on, let me remove my camera. Look at them. Look at them. Y'all will understand all the references soon, I promise. Oh my goodness. Maybe that kind of makes us family. Hello, Sam. Hello, Clover. Hello. Welcome. It's pink art. Yes. Also, Sam, I have yet to read your stuff because I've been writing all day myself with Danny. I've been writing with Danny. Yes, it's very pretty. Y'all, please go follow Danny. She literally does like everything. She is my everything. Oh my goodness. Also, I made a post too for chapter 2. Yeah! It's all good. I'm excited for Pinkman chapter 2. Good, because I'm going to be reading it tonight. We're going to read In the Vein of Jokes and Late Night Smokes and My Kid Could Paint That by Thanotaphobia and Lockergirl. So, we're going to wait for some more people to roll in. I'm going to wait till the Discord notification goes out because for some reason it has not gone out yet, which is kind of rude in my opinion. But speaking of Twitter, guys, if you all have Twitter, give me a follow. I want to hit 420. I want to hit 420 followers this year. And also, if you're not following me on Twitch already, Look, it's you guys. You should be. Because I want to hit, there's the notification. I'm trying to hit 1K. Love your YouTube videos. Excited to stream. Hello, Froggo. First time chatter. Welcome to the stream. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope you're having a lovely day. I'm so glad you love my YouTube videos because, this is going to be up on my VODs channel. This is going to be up on the VODs channel. Hold on. Is that on the right? There it goes. Streamlabs was a little late with the command there. But this is going to go on the VODs channel. The first SBI Sunday from last week is already up there. And, of course, all the fic links are in the description. So y'all can go read them and give them kudos yourself. I'm just the audiobook. Hence why your favorite Twitch streamer fanfic audiobook is now in my bio. But yes, I am trying to hit 1K before my birthday, which is on Wednesday. Crim? Don't cry, craft. So true, Mags. RB, you're amazing. Oh. Anyways. Guys, I'm gonna be free 2 days. Let's go. Pop off, Blueberry. Hello, Blueberry. Welcome, welcome. This is the ultimate showdown of ultimate destiny. But I'm so excited. Not the don't cry craft. It's funny. Of ultimate destiny. Whoa. Yo! Let's go, Clover with the follow. Pop off. Pop off, King. Oh my goodness, Aimsy's live. Pop off. Alright. Of Indiana Jones? I wanted to say Indiana Bones only because I have a skeleton named Indiana Bones. Into Bruce Wayne. Bruce Norris? I got confused. Alright, let me put the lore playlist on. Be afraid. It's the lore playlist, guys. The lore playlist. I'm so ready. Okay. Success. Yes. Should I tweet out? Hold on. What did I just tweet? Gonna be reading this live on my Twitch tonight. No, not the lore playlist. Yes, the lore playlist. It's gonna be epic. Okay. Anyways. We're gonna be reading Undertale songs? Oh, for realsies. Although it's not like sad lore, it's just background noise basically. But this was originally used for my character on the Arduous SMP, which I haven't really touched. We kind of wrapped that up when Arduous was down for a bit. But now it's back up. So, I'm suddenly scared. What? You don't need to be scared, guys, I promise. Look at these tags. Like, the only thing that's tagged that I might have to trigger warning about is smoking. Underage smoking. Don't smoke, kids. That's the lesson Tommy learns. It's all this is a modern setting, this is a modern setting, and then this is a super secret agent CIA setting. Don't be scared, guys. Don't be there's no reason to be scared. /Jen, I would tell you. This song is kind of intense though. Yo, Nelly Game Huntress is here? Stop. My day just got 10 times better. My day just got 10 times better in it. But shall we just jump right into it, guys? Shall we? Danny is sending me TikToks. Queen, Queen. What are you doing? Wait, guys. Do y'all want to say hi to TikTok real quick? You want to say hi to TikTok? Can we get some hi TikToks in chat? Go fast. I'm about to hit record. Lies? What do you mean lies? Let's go. Hello, TikTok. Hello. Woo! We are going to be reading freaking fanfics today. Hold on, wait. I wasn't on my face. Hold on. Hi, TikTok. Nodders. We're gonna be reading some fanfics today on stream. Hope to see you there. Woo! There we go. That is much better. Amazing. Okay, you guys are awesome. Okay, let me get some... Perfect. Okay, wait, I have to post that on. Post a story. Oh, amazing. Thank you guys. Y'all are awesome. Speaking of TikTok, don't forget to leave a follow on my TikTok. I always make posts about SBI Fanfics and my own fanfics. Danny has an idea for a pink man TikTok that I need to put in the works. Be scared. There's no reason to be scared. This one's actually really sweet. It's all SBI, so. Okay. This looks like a good song. All right. I think I'm out of water. Oh, well, I'll get water after we do this read. It's super short. 1.9k words. I will make people scared, just like you'll make people eat styrofoam. Bruh. Bruh. I'm carrying your love with me. Inspired by this tweet. Co-workers SBI who take their smoke breaks together, except intern Tommy isn't allowed to smoke, so he goes outside with them to blow bubbles instead. Cute. There we go. In the vein of jokes and late night smokes by Thanotaphobia. I'm a great listener, Tommy argues. You guys are just bad influences. I like to think I'm okay. Phil, you're married. You're the worst influence of all. Or to the tune of Taylor Tradition, SBI bond on their smoke break. Hi, Danny. Hi, Danny. We're going to be reading some short fics before we get to Pink Man, so hopefully you'll get to stay. I'll speed read if I have to. But these are super cute, and I highly recommend. Julie, Blueberry Tea is trying to scare me. Help. I cannot control the berry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All right. No, take your time. Cool beans. Hold on, the text is really tiny. I need to like zoom in so I can read it. It starts like this. A bored 17-year-old, a tired 30-year-old manager, and two starving artists walk out of a bar. It's a rainy Monday evening that they find themselves crammed together under the meager back patio awning, water dripping from the sky to puddle on the dirty asphalt in mucky pools of filth. Sodium orange streetlights flicker in the distance, and they're all illuminated by the cobweb-covered bulb above the back door. Pale blue light pouring over them. One of the starving artists arrives first. He plants himself on the steps kept dry by dingy yellow fabric and pulls out a notebook and a pen. Then, with those in his lap, he lights a cigarette, sticks in his mouth, and hunches over the papers to scribble frantically. Music kind of loud on my end. The music is so powerful, it blasts in my ears. Next to arrive is the teenager, scrawny blonde hair and wearing a stained white apron that's faced with the wrath of many a dish tonight. He doesn't have cigarettes or books to write in, but he'll be damned if he doesn't get a smoke break too. So he just stands there in the rainy chill and wraps his arms around himself, shivering. The second starving artist comes next. He stops at the sight of his two co-workers, pausing for a moment on the threshold, but the teenager lights up when he spots him and waves him over. Sighing, the second artist steps forward, shoes shining and slick leather clipping against the ground. He pulls out his own pack, and staunchly holds it over his head where the kid can't reach. Finally comes the manager. He slips out the door and shuts it quietly, turning, then startles. He holds a hand over his chest and laughs at the three of them, two with soft orange buds of flame held between their lips, the third pouting as he flicks a lighter on and off. He reaches out and snags it from the kid's grasp. I can read, guys. I swear I've done this before. Opening his own pocket to pull out, not a cigarette, but something similar enough. You know, Phil says, taking a long drag, we're leaving it pretty understaffed in there. Corporate can suck my dick, Tommy shoots back. Phil hums at him, and Tommy laughs a little as Wilbur slaps him upside the head. Don't be a bitch, he said. Phil's technically corporate. Phil's technically about to keel over and die, but I don't see him dead on the floor, do I? Tommy fires back, and Wilbur cackles, bending over at the waist as smoke trails out of his mouth. The last on their line lifts his head from his writing and puts the pen down in order to take the cigarette out from between his lips. Corporate doesn't give a shit about us, so why should we give a shit about them? He flicks the butt of his smoke to rid it of ash and puts it back in his mouth. Then he returns to his notebook. Techno, as always, makes the most sense, Phil says, nodding sagely. Tommy sighs, leaning against the cool brick of the alley wall behind them, then holds his hand out to Phil. Phil, who raises an eyebrow and turns a quarter way. Ha! Not a chance, mate. Come on, he whines, pitching his high heels. Please, Phil, let me be a delinquent, please. You're not even 18, Phil says, not unkindly, as he pockets his lighter from where he'd been fiddling with it. The smoke from his joint lingers around his face, cut with the chemical sweet smell of nicotine. Also, it's illegal. I could report you, Tommy threatens, but that just makes Phil bark out a laugh. You like me too much, he says. Wilbur! Tommy whines again, turning. Wilbur just shakes his head. Oh, no, I'm not letting you bum off me, Tom, he said. Sorry, kiddo. Smoking kills. Techno drawls from his spot. Tommy aims his kick well. The other man grunts, but doesn't move an inch. And his pen never stops shuffling across the lightly damp pages of his notebook. And? Tommy asks. I want to be like you guys. At that, all three of them laugh, snorting giggles and chuckles that echo in the small space that they have to themselves behind the bar. The awning still drip, drip, dripping rain onto the stickly tar ground. The lighting catches all their faces, and for a moment, every single one of them looks ages older than they actually are. Maybe not, Wilbur tells him, reaching out to ruffle Tommy's hair. It's cool, Tommy insists, and Phil just shakes his head, leaning against the brick and watching as the two bicker back and forth. Tommy does his very best to convince Wilbur to hand over the cigarettes, and eventually, after a good minute or two, Wilbur sighs and digs into his pocket. Fine, he says. Tommy's eyes brighten. Both Phil and Techno's heads snap up from where they'd settled into the comfortable ambiance. Mate, Phil starts, and Wilbur looks up as he opens the box and pulls one out. He smiles at Phil and raises a brow, the exact expression used to convey, trust me. Reluctantly, Phil leans back and just shrugs. Tommy sticks his tongue out at him to blow a raspberry, gleefully taking the cigarette from Wilbur's fingers and lifting it to his mouth. Inhale when I light it, Wilbur instructs, bringing the lighter up between them. When his thumb shifts down and clicks it on, a brilliant spot of orange light blaring between them, casting both of them in worldly flame. Phil and Techno's eyes meet in the space between two boys as Wilbur holds the fire to the end of Tommy's smoke, and the younger boy inhales, only to exhale a hacking, gasping cough. Techno laughs. Phil just smiles as Tommy reels backwards, dropping it to the ground. Wilbur swears, ducking to rescue the smoke from its damp fate as Tommy continues to cough and wheeze and dramatically clutch his throat and chest. I'm dying! He laments, and Phil just rolls his eyes and takes another hit. How could you let him do that to me? You wanted it, mate, Phil says. Tommy flips him the bird with a glare. Well, it was bad, he says primly as Wilbur shakes the dirt off the dropped cigarette, snuffing out his current butt against the cold cinder block wall and sticking the new one in his mouth to finish, since Tommy clearly isn't going to. I was a bit dramatic, it was still bad. Told you, Techno muttered, turning his eyes back to his book. Phil wonders vaguely when it'll be done, if it'll ever be done. Wilbur knows better than to hope for an ending, and Tommy just wants to read a single page. Techno himself is utterly clueless towards any idea of an end. His own cigarette, however, is nearly completion, so he stubs it out and lights another. I'm a great listener, Tommy argues. You guys are just bad influences. I like to think I'm okay. Phil, you're married. You're the worst influence of all. I'm gonna tell Chris you said that. See if she lets you back in her flat for Monopoly night. Fuck off! Don't tell her, please! Tommy, don't be a bitch, Wilbur croons, slinging an arm over his shoulders. It's okay. We all know you meant Techno and I are the bad influences. Shut the fuck up, Tommy says, shoving at his arm with no real intent to push it off. They struggle for a minute before staggering out into the rain by accident, leaving them both to dash back under the safety of the thick linen. Tommy yowling and Wilbur muttering unintelligibly about his hair. Techno gives up on writing at a point. Too much noise and too little room to focus. So instead, he props his chin in his hand and watches with half-lidded eyes, hair pulled back in a loose bun behind his head. He plays with the edge of his notebook, exchanging amused glances with Phil every now and then. And while Tommy's busy, they trade smokes for a minute before handing them back. Ugh, is this flavored? Techno asks, and Phil glances down at his half-burnt joint and shrugs. Cherry, maybe? You're disgusting, old man. Techno teases, and Phil laughs. Kristen likes them. I don't pay attention. Back to the wall, Tommy digs in his pockets for something as he trades insults with Wilbur. They're both smiling, until finally Tommy finds what he's looking for and pulls it out with a flourish and a loud, aha! All three older men exchange glances as he struggles to open the cap, twisting with force before pulling out a small... Is that a fucking bubble wand? Wilbur asks, and wheezes with delight as Tommy puckers his lips to blow, bubbles flowing from the tiny piece of round yellow plastic. Yes, he says, clearly delighted. Where did you get a bubble wand? Techno asks over Wilbur's laughter. Phil's office, Tommy says, and three heads swivel to look at him. Phil blinks. Don't look at me, he says, raising his hands defensively. I have no fucking clue where he got that from. Or I have no fucking clue where that came from. Which sends all four of them into spiraling amusement. Phil hiccuping and Techno burying his face in his hands to hide the way he's grinning. Tommy, ever petulant, blows another round of bubbles. They catch the light and shine like stars, floating peacefully on the breeze until an errant raindrop pops them or they hit the ground. A few linger there, reflecting kaleidoscope refractions until their time is deemed up and they pop. Tommy grins and blows another round. Since you guys won't let me smoke, he says, and Wilbur protests for a moment before dropping it. I found a different solution. Now Phil can't yell at me for taking a smoke break when I don't smoke. I don't care if you take a break, Tommy, Phil says, and then laughs a little. He's really got a case of the giggles. It's just not a smoke break if you don't, smoke. Bubble break. Techno deadpans, and they lose it all over again. When their laughter has subsided and Techno has put out his second smoke on the wall, followed by Wilbur, then Phil, who joins them by letting his joint go out and tucking it away again, everything is hazy and light. Tommy is still giggling and occasionally blowing bubbles, coughing with the aftermath of his joy, before capping the bubbles and pocketing them again. All right, Phil says, clapping a hand on Tommy's shoulder. Break's over. Bubble break, Tommy corrects him, and Wilbur snorts. Techno has already stood up, his journal tucked by his side, watching them through the glint of his glasses with no small amount of fondness as he cracks the door open. We left Nikki and Jack in there all alone, Phil says. Come on. I'm sure they're fine, Wilbur says, gesturing lightly and flicking his lighter over his knuckles, the way he rolls bottle caps over them to impress customers at the bar when he's making a drink. Still, Phil says, it's been long enough. Inside, you shits. Techno holds the door as Wilbur files in, followed by Tommy. Phil smiles at him as he waves away the last bit of smoke still clinging to their skin, and Techno smiles back. A laughing 17-year-old, a fond 30-year-old manager, and two starving artists walk into a bar and get back to work. Tomorrow night, though, tradition holds, and they'll walk right out of the back again for bubbles and smokes. That's a good one. That's a really good one. I didn't leave kudos? I'm a fake fan. Oh my gosh. I thought I left kudos in here. I left a comment. I left a really sweet comment. Yeah. And look, they even replied. Hi, Scope. Oh my gosh, I didn't see you come in. Hello. Hello, the voices. Yes. I love doing the voices so much. It's literally like my favorite part. Oh my gosh, poor Rocket Duo. They're doing their best. You snuck in. You snuck in the back door. Yo! Sin City Mal. Hello. Thank you so much for that follow. Thank you for that. Welcome to the stream. But yeah, I commented. This is really sweet, Reed Rocks. I love the SBI banter. You're really encapsulated here. I'm happy to hear you're doing good. That means you're going to continue writing. Proudy Rocks for the community made and the art that you share. And like, this means the world. Oh my goodness. I love Roxanne's work so much. After a few years, they're all dead. No, they're fine. They're fine. But yeah, thanotaphobia. Guys, this person wrote Cataclysm. Like, the Cataclysm. The royalty fic. It's so good. I remember, like, waking up, like, every week or so, and there'd be, like, an update. Juliberry, no kudos. I left kudos. I left kudos. I left it. Cataclysm. Yes. It's so good. They managed to print it into a book. Man, I had to Zoom call my teacher through all that and I missed it. No. Excuse me. I'm eating expired nerds. Why? I love that fic. Yeah, Cataclysm is so good. Yeah, guys. It's literally like one of my favorite fics. It just makes me sad to reread it because I know of like the ending. The ending made me cry. Ah! Not the nerds. Why not? I mean, I guess. But yeah. Like, oh, pretty sure I've read that. It literally makes me sob. Like, he was so close to like getting his kingdom back and then he had to do the coup and it was like, oh my goodness. And then like Fundy comes in and then it's like, oh. I'm making myself emotional thinking about it. Danny, if you can hear me, you have to read it, man. You're probably playing Valorant right now. Shh, don't remind me. You've never read it? Okay. Well, I won't spoil it for you then. I will not spoil it for you then. Yo. Valorant gang. What the heck? Nice job, Marceline. God, I love Jack Manifold. I just read your fic! Roxanne! I just read your fic! Please, notice me! Oh. Yes, it's Kid Tommy. It's Kid Tommy time. It's Kid Tommy time. Are you guys ready? I'm ready. I'm ready for it. Okay. Hold on, I gotta retweet my tweet. We're reading by lockergirl on stream. Yes. Oh wait. I gotta do the good old little copy and paste, you know? Just gonna take that out. It's too long. Yeah! It's the nerds. Oh my goodness. Don't hurt yourself over nerds. Boom. I done diddly darn did it. I hope someone sees that. Chat. What did you think of the last one, huh? The one about Roxanne, huh? I enjoyed it. Hold on, I should have linked it. Hold on. I should link it. Okay, wait. Cataclysm. There we go. Okay, guys. If you have an AO3 account, go and leave kudos. Go do it. Do it! Where's the bumpkin Glock emote? But they're so good, the nerds. I love the purple color. Which one? Which one? Of your name? Thank you. Thank you. That is very sweet of you to say. I picked it out from the options that Twitch gave me. Speaking of my name, I'm still so proud of this. Scope. Scope, look at the Emmy art. Ah! Emmy art. And then I made this. I made my because of like it literally worked out so well because of the way that Emmy did the lighting. And so I just made my name look like neon lights. And then I literally like I copied and then I did like a layer mask and I like drew around it and I made this little corner thing from the stuff on my skin. Es magnifique. Also, I got my friend to listen to the Sonic Fandub today, PogChamp, and I also posted selfies the other day. I don't normally post selfies, so I felt very good. I felt very good yesterday. So, yay. They taste good. I mean, as long as your immune system is good to you and, you know. Alright. Shall we get going? Are y'all ready for this next one? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Because after this, we're gonna read Pink Man. Better see some hearts in chat if y'all are ready. My immune system is overworked. Well, tell it to keep working. Ready, Freddy? Let's go. I'm gonna make it full screen. Yeah. All right, we're ready. So this is, yeah, artist, kid, TommyInnit, artist, Technoblade, good parent, Filza. Good parent, Filza. Woo! Good sibling, comfort, no hurt. Tommy falls over, but it's okay. Time to pull out the kid voice, though. I'm TommyInnit. I'm a kid. Like that. That's how he sounds like. That's what he sounds like. To me, at least. Alright. Clover got the Mordecai and Twilight Sparkle hearts in the chat. Let's go. I fall over at the time. No angst here. Kekdoma. Same. Same. My kid that could paint. I said it wrong. I was gonna do it right when the beat dropped. I messed it up. Hold on. I gotta redeem myself. My kid could paint that by lockergirl. By this point, Tommy was absolutely covered in paint. His hands were a muddy brown. His right elbow had been dipped in blue. His cheeks, normally rosy, were literally bright red. Scarlet smeared straight across his face. It wasn't Tommy's fault. His nose had itched. Or Tommy wants to be an artist, just like his big brother Techno. If you love this one, Nelly, dude, doodle idea. It's okay. No, it's not. It needs to be perfect. It's not my fault. I'm a perfectionist in it. For Henry the Cow, fic fight prompt, artist at you. I'm so like glad fic fight is like going on around this time. All right. By this point, Tommy was absolutely covered in paint. His hands were a muddy brown. His right elbow had been dipped in blue. His cheeks, normally rosy, were literally bright red. Scarlet smeared straight across his face. It wasn't Tommy's fault. His nose had itched. Normally, the kid's artistic visions were restricted to crayons and printer paper. After he had used his finger paints on the living room wall, almost all of his supplies had been confiscated by his dad. It was totally unfair. When Techno painted on walls, the mayor said he made pretty murals. When Tommy did it, he didn't get dessert for a week. It was a complete scam. Hello, first time chatter, Daydreaming1234. Hello, welcome to the stream. I hope you're having a great day, night, evening, whatever your time zone may be. I should probably put the link in chat. Guys, we are currently reading My Kid Could Paint That by lockergirl. Please go give them some kudos. Leave a comment, bookmark, subscribe, whatever you need to do. This fic is super duper cute, and I hope you enjoy it. But even Tommy's dad couldn't get upset about this current masterpiece. The boy had been very careful in planning it, waiting until his entire family was busy before sneaking into Techno's studio. Then he found a blank canvas and some paints, squeezing out entire tubes onto one of Techno's palettes. Once that was all set up, Tommy had gone straight to work. Techno's paintings were very pretty, even if Tommy didn't really understand them. His brother claimed that he only painted about important things like anarcho-communism and the rise of neo-fascism, but no one had ever bothered to explain to Tommy what those words meant. All of the adults just nodded when Techno said things like that, clapping politely and giving him lots of money. When Tommy said those words, his teacher made a phone call home to his dad. He didn't even get any money. Another scam. Tommy mixed all of the red and white paint together. That made pink! Techno had shown him how to mix colors lots of times. Red and white were pink. That one was easy. But, oh no. Now he didn't have any more red or white. That was a problem. Tommy picked up a glob of pink paint and letting it land with a smack in the middle of the canvas. He liked that sound. He picked up even some more paint. Let me try that again. He liked that sound. He picked up some more pink paint to hear it again. The canvas was mostly pink by this point, but that was okay. Tommy liked pink. It reminded him of Techno. The kid added some yellow and some green, which was blue and yellow mixed together. Weird. To the corners of his painting, but there was still too much white peeking through. He needed to cover everything. After exploring the studio again and accidentally getting a bit of paint on Techno's floors, Tommy found another tube of red. Squealing with delight, he ran back to his canvas, squeezing it directly onto his hands and pressing his palms against the canvas. There! It was done. The paint was starting to dry on Tommy's skin. It was not very nice. He wanted to wash it off. It was hard to get Techno's stool in front of the sink, but Tommy made it work. After a bit of what does that word say? Finagling and a jammed finger, he made a mess. It's messy in it. He managed to pull the seat up to the counter. Then, with a healthy amount of confidence, he climbed up the stool and turned on the faucet. The water that came out was warm and quickly began to fill up the sink. Tommy hummed cheerfully, sticking his hands under the running water and rubbing them together. Nice and clean, he sang, mostly to himself. V.I. Kier, thank you so much for that follow. Welcome to the stream. Hope you're having a great day, night, evening, whatever time zone may be. We are currently reading... What are we reading? That My Kid Could Paint That by Lockergirl on AO3. But thank you for that follow. Nice and clean, he sang, mostly to himself. Nice and clean. But oh, there was still paint on his elbow. Tommy leaned forward to get further under the tap when, crash! The stool slid out from under Tommy's feet, sending him toppling to the ground. As the little boy fell on his side, he yelled out in pain, hardly able to make sense of what had just happened. Then, he started to cry. Tommy wasn't a baby. Normally he would never cry. But these were very special circumstances. He was gravely injured, after all. He deserved a bit of melodrama. A few seconds later, and the door to the studio flew open. Tommy? A worried voice said, stumbling in from the doorway. Tommy, where are you? The kid started bawling even harder, fingers curling up into little fists as Wilbur, his other older brother, finally spotted him. Oh! Wilbur gasped, taking in the sorry sight. He immediately ran over to his little brother, picking him up and holding him tight against his chest. A bit of red paint got onto the man's shirt as Tommy rubbed his face into his brother's shoulder, but Wilbur didn't seem to care. Oh, Tommy, I heard a loud crash and then you were crying. Are you hurt? Tell me where it hurts, baby. Tommy was distraught. He was inconsolable. He was horribly maimed from his accident, and nothing would ever make it better. Come on, Wilbur said, holding Tommy a little tighter. You're a big boy, right? Tell me where it hurts, and I'll fix it, I promise. Tommy was a big boy, so he showed Wilbur his elbows. He had banged them really hard on the ground, and they still felt bad. Wilbur cooed, kissing both injuries. Then he pressed his lips against Tommy's forehead. There, he said, only pulling away an inch. Is that better, or do you need some band-aids? Tommy thought it over. On one hand, The kisses had helped a lot, but on the other, Dad said that it was always better to be safe than sorry. Band-aids, Tommy said softly. Wilbur gave him a comforting smile. A few minutes later, Tommy had 2 band-aids on his elbows, one green and one red. Wilbur had just barely managed to stop the sink from overflowing, turning it off right as the first bits of water began to slosh over the edge. As the man put the first aid kit back under the sink, he gave Tommy a worried look. "What happened, big guy?" he asked, pulling Tommy close again. "Did you trip?" Tommy shook his head. "I wanted to wash my hands, but the stool fell over." "Oh," Wilbur said. "That sounds very bad. Next time, get one of us if you need help reaching the sink, okay?" Tommy didn't like that arrangement, but he nodded anyway. "Why did you need to wash your hands?" Wilbur asked, looking Tommy up and down. He seemed to be noticing how messy the kid was. "What were you doing?" Tommy sniffled. "I was painting," he said, a little embarrassed. "Techno has this big show tonight, and I wanted to give him a painting because he has to sell all of his, and then he won't have any left." Wilbur smiled. "You little sweetheart," he said, kissing the top of Tommy's head. Oh my god, there's paint in your hair too. How did you even manage that?" Tommy shrugged. "Painting was hard. Sometimes you got it in your hair." "Could you show me what you made?" Wilbur asked. There was something a little apprehensive in his voice, but Tommy chose to ignore it, nodding as he hopped out of Wilbur's arms. "It's over here," he said, grabbing his brother's hand and leading him to the canvas. "Oh," Wilbur said, finally spotting the masterpiece. This is, well, it's very creative, Tommy." Tommy gave a happy nod. It was creative. He was a very good artist. Do you think Tech will like it?" he asked, trying not to sound nervous. Wilbur laughed. "If it's from you," he said, hoisting Tommy up into his arms before grabbing the canvas, "he'll love it." Techno and Dad were in the gallery room, setting up for that night's show. Tommy could hear them from down the hallway. "I'm telling you," Techno said, voice echoing slightly, "if Dream shows up and tries to lecture me about the future of art again, I'm going to kick him out." Dad chuckled. "You boys and your rivalries," he said. Tommy could practically imagine him shaking his head fondly. "There's plenty of room for the both of you in the art world." "Are you kidding me?" Techno asked. "I've got the dual grant by the skin of my teeth. I can't afford to—" "Dad, Techno," Wilbur announced, waltzing into the room with his arms full. Tommy giggled at the bravado in his brother's voice. "I come bearing gifts." "Oh?" Dad said, smiling at Tommy. "You've brought our first buyer. Tommy, did you bring your wallet?" The kid scrunched up his face and shook his head. "Ah, man," Techno drawled. "I was hoping he'd buy us out so we could cancel the whole thing." Dad swatted Techno's arm good-naturedly. "Don't be like that. Gallery nights are fun." "Gallery nights are my own personal level of hell," Techno corrected. He turned back to the wall, hanging a canvas up. "I burned this whole room to the ground if it meant getting out of it." "Well," Wilbur said, voice thoughtful, "that actually would work." "Don't encourage him," Dad said. "What's that you're carrying, by the way?" Wilbur smiled. "This," he said, turning the canvas around, "is a present from Tommy." Techno and Dad both immediately turned to look at the painting, instantly curious. Tommy watched their expressions carefully. "Interesting use of colors," Techno muttered, examining the finished piece closely. "Strong composition, and you have a good control of the brush." "I used my fingers," Tommy corrected. "Ah, yes," Techno said, squinting slightly. "I see that now." "It's adorable," Dad gushed, smiling at his youngest. "What is it?" "It's us," Tommy said, wiggling out of Wilbur's arms. Dad seemed delighted by that answer, though Techno looked a bit more skeptical. "Explain it to me," he said, beckoning Tommy closer. "Well," Tommy said, "the pink is you because of your hair. Or because your hair is pink." Techno nodded, following the logic. "Very direct. I respect that." "The green is Dad because he wears a green bathrobe," Tommy said. Dad, who was standing behind him, started laughing. "And the yellow is Wilbur because he has a yellow sweater." "Let me guess," Techno said. "Red is you because it's your favorite color?" Tommy nodded furiously. "Yes!" "Interesting choices," Techno said, rubbing his chin. If anyone else had been doing it, Tommy would have thought he was being mocked. But Techno was just genuinely like that sometimes. "Why finger painting?" "I like finger painting," Tommy explained, "and I wanted to make it abstract, because then people will think I'm fancy like you, and they can't tell me if I'm good or not." And they can't tell if I'm good or not. Techno laughed at that. He pulled Tommy in for a hug, big and safe. You like it? Tommy asked, face pressed against his brother's chest. I love it, kid, Techno said, holding him even tighter. The boy felt a wave of relief. You always sell all your art, and sometimes you seem sad about it. So I made you this one, so you still have a painting, even if you make a lot of money tonight. Techno chuckled, ruffling his little brother's hair. That's very nice of you. Do you have paint in your hair? Tommy nodded. Techno laughed again. You're an artistic genius, Techno said, and I've just the place for your latest masterpiece. Techno walked over to the gallery wall, taking down the canvas he had just put up. Then, motioning Wilbur to bring the other piece over, he hung Tommy's painting up in its place. There, he said. We'll need to change the label, but I think that looks much better than the old piece. Dad sighed, shaking his head. You're the artist, he said. It's your vision. What do you think, Tommy? Techno asked. You want to be a professional artist? Have your piece hanging up in a real show? Tommy nodded furiously, bouncing over to the wall. This was better than having his art on the fridge, or above the stairs, or on his bulletin board. This was fancy. It was grown up. Everyone had to admit that Tommy was a big kid now. It's mine! He shouted, looking at his family in delight. I painted it! You did! Wilbur confirmed, smiling at the kid. It looks great! Is it not upside down? Dad asked, tilting his head. I think Wilbur was holding it the other way. Oh, Techno said, correcting it quickly. There, fixed it. How much money do you think this will sell for? Wilbur asked. I think that Tommy will be the first billionaire under the age of 5. I'm not selling it, Techno announced, pulling Tommy closer to his side. It's priceless. As Tommy hugged his brother's leg, getting a bit of paint on the man's jeans, he couldn't help but grin. No wonder Techno loved being an artist so much. No one look at me! It's so good. It's so good. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I love that. What the heck? I'm being mentioned in my story. What the muffin? Oh, the notes. Someone offers to buy Tommy's painting at the gallery show because it's a fascinating depiction of childhood trauma, and Techno tells him to frick off. Oh my gosh. That was so... I know it was good. Because it's probably not clear in this universe, Techno is an extremely famous abstract artist. They live in a very big house with its own gallery room so that Techno can display/sell his own pieces. Also, everyone in this AU loves Tommy and supports him unconditionally because I said so, even if he got paint all over Techno's studio and wasted a lot of supplies. Aww. It's adorable. I see that Danny liked this one too. Ah, yes, arson. That's a really cute one. I love that one a lot. I love it. What the heck? Villager noise. Villager noise in it. What? I'm so confused on what my friend is trying to message me. Oh my gosh. Alright. I'm going to make a doodle for this one as well. Yay! Alright. Chat. It's time. We're only 51 minutes into the stream, so we're going to be spending the rest of it reading Pinkman, Chapter 2. Okay. It's time. It's time. Get hype. Get hype. It's time, innit? Danny! Danny, are you ready? Gonna be reading the fic, innit? Yeah, y'all are ready. Y'all are ready. Want them... Not the skitties on my freaking timeline. Get that out of here. It's SBI time. You're not ready? What do you mean? Yeah, Dr. Pepper. Berry hearts. Berry hearts, all the berries. Alright. The Pink Man. Alright, do y'all need a lore cap? Lore cap? A lore recap from chapter 1? I'm too dizzy to... If you're dizzy, please take care of yourself. Drink water. Like, do all this stuff. Yes, please. Okay, so in chapter 1, we are introduced to Technoblade, aka Blade. So, yeah, he's Techno Space Blade, I guess. So basically, this goes 2 years earlier. We talk about how Technoblade knows Filza and Tommy. Filza is Tommy's uncle. Tommy has a heart condition. Filza is raising Tommy after both of Tommy's parents passed away. And so, CIA is run by Puffy, and then like some director guy Schlatt won't supply like agency security to Tommy's house after Phil's address is leaked. And so he's like, Phil's got a trip to go on, so you're gonna babysit Tommy, basically. So he's basically Tommy's bodyguard. Kristen is Tommy's caretaker. One time she steps out, Tommy's heart goes on a little like ba-dum, got some problems going on. So he takes him to the hospital and he starts caring for this kid. Tommy's like super freaking sassy, might I add. They bond over ice cream and Smarties and being like, they have relations with Phil. Techno sees Phil as a father figure basically because he got him out of prison and basically trained him to be this cool killer guy. Whoa. I am so sorry. Excuse me. And then, yeah, they bond over ice cream, and then some guy breaks in and Techno beats the crap out of him, basically saving Tommy. And so he's like, oh man, like I care for this kid so much. I hope, like, I don't. Unfortunately, that wouldn't be the last time that Techno had to save him. So that's the lore recap. I hope I answered all the questions. And now we are in present day. So that was, the first chapter was 2 years earlier, and this is now. All right, you're a human if you can't control. Yes, I'm human. I knew it. Thought I was from outer space. Sent from, I don't know, some fruit planet. The Pink Man by Danny Art Online and Juliberry. Chapter 2. Present day. Whenever Techno was sent somewhere new, they never bothered to give him the details. Most of his missions were kept on a need-to-know basis. Where, when, how quietly, how subtle, how to get in and out without getting seen. I'm playing that with 0 volume, so this better be good. Danny, please. Also, good luck on the game. Parts of that were good. It kept the job impersonal, and in some ways that made it easier. All Techno ever really knew was that when the CIA wanted someone taken out, they came to him, and he was told that they were a bad person, probably up to some bad shit, and that it was his job to stop them, usually at any cost. But rarely did a mission have dress requirements. Oh, you've got to be shitting me. He'd mutter when he saw the red 2-piece suit, newly pressed, and just his size, 42 regular. At least it didn't have a tie, but he still wrinkled his nose at the bright fire hydrant color. It made sense for the occasion, however, his newest assignment located at a New Year's Eve party in Bangkok. Luckily for him, the party had free drinks, and as he sat at one of the many shiny tables in the ballroom, looking out of the wall of glass windows as the city sent colorful fireworks blazing into the night sky, he took a sip of the pink lemonade cocktail he'd picked up from the open bar. It definitely wasn't the worst job in the world. No, he'd definitely done worse jobs than this. But he couldn't remember the last time he'd worked with someone. Usually he was a lone agent, He didn't need backup, but they'd given him someone anyway. And his partner came sauntering past his table and stepped directly in front of his view. He could help but feel a twang of annoyance, a frown pulling at his lips. Agent Soot stared down at him, the rims of his silver spectacles gleaming in the dim light, his expression flat and unimpressed. "Do you need anything?" he offered. Techno stared back at him for a second before reaching down to grab the skewer in his drink, impaling a raspberry. "No, I'm good," he replied, popping the berry into his mouth and chewing on it casually before pocketing the toothpick. Soot looked him up and down, his eyebrow raised slightly. "Nice suit," he commented sarcastically. Techno shook his head, already thoroughly irritated with the fact that he had to wear this ridiculous color before forcing out through gritted teeth. "I just wear what they tell me to." A smirk slowly crept across his partner's face, his eyes twinkling with amusement, and Techno was starting to realize how punchable this guy's smile was. "Subtle," he commented slyly. Well, we're so freaking... I love them so much. Subtle in it. Oh. Techno stared at him for a moment, his eyes traveling down to Soot's dress shoes before slowly tracing his way up the agent's white floral suit, printed with pink roses and twisting sage leaves. He'd even gotten a tie, a bright cobalt blue against his white-collared shirt, and Techno certainly didn't want to know who he'd pissed off to get such a monstrosity of an outfit. "You're no fly on the wall yourself," he retorted finally, returning Soot's smug smirk. Red might have been a god-awful color to sneak around in, but he'd take fire hydrant over flower garden any day of the week. Guys, it's the freaking fan art from... It's the art. It's the art. Guys, look at it. Go. Ah. He ate... Oh, it's cause Techno ate the berry. No, guys, he didn't eat us, I promise. Look at him. Look at them. They're so pretty. Okay, anyways. Back to the fanfic, because Danny's listening right now. She's playing Val. Art. Yes. It's Danny's middle name. Fire hydrant over flower garden any other day of the week. Soot didn't say anything, but the smile didn't fade from his lips, which told Techno that he wasn't as insulted as he'd hoped, before he stepped forward, sliding a red plastic water gun across the table towards Techno. The agent glanced down at it, raising an eyebrow. "I don't have a permit," he deadpanned. Soot looked back at him, the same amused twinkle still in his eyes, and replied, "It's not that kind of party." Then Techno watched as he turned away, his shoes clicking against the floor as he crossed the dance floor and disappearing within the crowd of people. He frowned down at the plastic water gun, but picked it up anyways, turning it over in his hand to see a key card strapped to the other side of the handle before quickly stuffing it away in the band of his trousers. It was only when he'd stood and made his way out of the ballroom that he took it out again, spinning the toy around his finger absently as he made his way down the hall. No one bothered to cast him a second glance as he approached his destination, a set of green double doors with an electric lock. But Oh, wait. Did we misspell electric? Uh-oh. I can go in and fix that. Hold on. Electric. Editing on stream. I mean, yeah. With an electric lock. Yeah! Alright. Did I just post it? It's still the same, right? Yeah! I did it, guys! I have the power to do that. I'm a co-author. Is it bad that I kind of like that suit? No, it's not bad at all. He looks so cute in it. Guys, he looks so cute in it. Look at him. And then Tommy. Tommy looks so sassy in it. So sassy. Alright. Do I have to refresh? Probably. Okay. Okay, cool. I found my spot again. I think it kind of works. They're both hot. Yeah. They both hot. Alright. No one bothered to cast him a second glance as he approached his destination, a set of green double doors with an electric lock, but he still looked over his shoulder cautiously as he lifted the water gun to the door handle. Then, once he heard the lock beep, he pushed it open carefully before slipping his way inside. The room wasn't all that large, and he could tell it was in the middle of being remodeled based on the sheets laid over expensive furniture and the tall cart filled with paint buckets and foam rollers. Light shone through the drapes on the far side of the room, fireworks still crackling in the distance. But the place felt recluse enough to get the job done, and that was what he was here to do. He tossed the plastic gun that Soot had given him off to the side, letting it land on a nearby sofa. Before shouldering off his red blazer, he hung it gently on a nearby light stand before glancing upwards. Above him, he could see the bottom of fancy heels and dress shoes shining through the translucent floorboards. Then he slowly made his way over to a heavy tarp and lifted it to reveal a black case. He quickly slid it out from underneath the brown canvas and clicked the clasps open, lifting up the top to reveal a disassembled infrared rifle along with an earpiece. He quickly picked up the earpiece, putting it in place, before finally grabbing the gun and lifting it from the foam interior. Just as he did, he heard the young voice of an anonymous dispatcher from the other line. "Blade, do you copy?" Techno ignored the voice, reaching into his pocket and pulled... yes. Blade ignored the voice, reaching into his pocket to pull out the toothpick that had been in his drink and placing it in between his lips. He whittled it absently in between his teeth as he gave his assigned weapon a once-over, making small adjustments to the heat and sound monitors, tuning it so his shot could be just right. "Blade?" He heard the voice again, slightly more impatient this time. "Blade, copy," he replied flatly. The dispatcher heard the agent's voice return to her over her earpiece clearly, her eyes glued on her computer monitor as his signal blinked on her screen. Even though she sat an ocean away from Blade in the Tactical Operations Center all the way back in Langley, Virginia, they were still able to keep close tabs on him. Hacked security camera footage of the building he was in. Radio signals and comm systems all ensured that he wouldn't be doing this alone. Not really. She gently pushed a strand of pink hair from her eyes as she typed out commands on her keyboard, relaying to the chief, "Sir, I have him," before finally patching him through. For a moment, Techno didn't hear anything else, but he'd slowly begun pacing around the room, continuing to fiddle with the details of his weaponry. They had just made these things so fancy now. He missed the days when he was just given a pistol and told to give it his best shot. Finally, he heard a voice come over the wire in a familiar, grating drawl. "Blade, this is Schlatt, your center chief. Our target, codename Obsidian, selling information that could severely compromise national security. We need him eliminated before that transaction is complete. Am I understood?" Schlatt waited for a beat, his finger hovering over the push-to-talk on the table beside him, his eyes trained on the monitor in front of him as he watched Blade pace methodically around the room. Through the lens of the security cams. Then, just as he was about to ask Nikki if she'd patched him through yet, he finally heard the agent reply, "Understood." Schlatt glanced to his right, a distasteful frown sliding over his lips as his eyes landed on his right-hand man. "Please tell me why I'm talking to a syndicate agent instead of somebody in our circle of trust," he said in a low voice. Excuse me. George let out a stifled sigh. Wow. George is laughing. George let out a stifled sigh. He was leaning forward in his seat, his elbows propped nonchalantly on his knees with his eyes focused on the monitors ahead of them, and Schlatt felt a flicker of annoyance pass through him of how unbothered the other agent looked. Still, George replied, "There was no time to get at one of our ours over there. Blade was in the region, and he happens to be historically good at his job." Just then, they both heard a voice come through. "Why can't I speak today?" Just then, they both heard a voice through the comm say, "Subject on approach." And Schlatt turned his head toward the monitor just in time to see their target climb out of a sleek black car, dressed in an all-white suit before the agent finished. "I have eyes on Obsidian." Back in the half-renovated room, Techno carefully pushed aside the curtains just enough to peer down into the crowd, hearing Schlatt relay through his earpiece, "Target imminent." "Be advised, he's not alone," he heard another voice say softly, and for a second, Techno had forgotten that Soot was patched. "Oh, that's Wilbur. My bad." "I'm British innit? Wilbur Soot. I'm Wilbur Soot. Be advised, he's not alone." That's how I get into my voices, guys. Fun fact. I just say their names. "Be advised, he's not alone," he heard another voice say softly, and for a second, Techno had forgotten that Soot was patched into the line as well, before his eyes finally found the target, trotting his way across the dance floor. He was surrounded by several men, all dressed in black, and Techno felt a jealous frown pull at his lips. White, black, any color suit was better than the god-awful red he'd been given. "Obsidian has security," Schlatt reiterated, and Techno suddenly felt the need to slap the voice in his ear across the back of the head, but watching Soot roll his eyes dramatically would have to suffice. "Stay the plan. He's coming up to you now, Blade." Or he's coming up on you now. I swear I've read this. Cool beans. Maybe I just need to drink more water. I'm gonna drink some water. Tasty. Room flavored. Or room temperature flavored. Is that a thing? "Stay the plan. He's coming up on you now, Blade." Techno turned away, lifting the rifle and flicking open the infrared monitor, turning it on with a whine as it illuminated everything in a soft yellow thermal glow. I made it bigger so I could read it. Oh, and I lost my spot. I lost it. Where'd it go? I found it. He began to step away from the window, the audio signal coming up distorted in his earpiece as the people above him clinked their glasses and shuffled across the floor, chatting and laughing softly with one another. "He's almost to you," he heard Schlatt murmur in his ear, and Techno had half a mind to tell him to just shut up and let him do his job. Instead, he'd stay focused, concentrating hard on the voices that were being picked up before he finally heard something worth note, about 3 floors above his location. "My friend, you made it," a man's voice said, and Techno watched through the infrared as the buyer threw his arms wide, greeting the target with a friendly disposition. Obsidian didn't seem to return the gesture, his form glancing around the room before saying, "Who are these people?" "Future friends," the buyer drawled, far too happy for his own good and probably drunk on more than just the holiday. "Future ex-wives." "Get rid of them," Obsidian snapped. "Relax," the man replied, his voice silky smooth. "Safer this way." "Don't tell me to relax. I want my money. Let's just transfer it and get it done," the target replied stiffly. "Do you understand the risk I'm taking by coming here?" Techno carefully began to line up his shot, doing his best to avoid obstruction on the floors in between them. If the bullet penetrated anything but glass, there was an awful good chance he'd miss his only shot to take this guy out. You have no idea of the kind of people you're going to have to deal with," the target continued, "and they are going to come for this." Techno watched as the man pulled something from the collar of his shirt, a necklace of some sort, or a medallion, but that wasn't what mattered at the moment. What mattered was that Techno fulfilled the mission, and to be honest, he could care less about what kind of threatening information the man was carrying, as long as he was taken out before it transferred hands. "Target acquired," he murmured through his earpiece. "Execute. Nothing stops them," Obsidian continued, oblivious to the gun that was just about to assassinate him, and even more oblivious to Techno's finger hovering over the trigger. "They can't get to anyone. Or they can get to anyone. I can read, guys, I promise." "They can get to anyone. Anywhere." Suddenly, at that moment, he heard something clatter over the audio and watched as a figure entered the frame of his monitor. A young boy, no older than 12. He felt his breath catch slightly and quickly removed his finger from the trigger as the boy began to speak to the buyer. His son? Maybe his nephew? Blade? Why am I not hearing anything? Said Schlatt's impatient voice from over his earpiece. Techno felt irritation begin to bubble up in his chest. I'm picking up collateral, he replied dryly, before explaining, there's a kid near the mark. You're cleared for collateral, he heard the center chief say without an ounce of hesitation. Go loud. Techno didn't move his finger back to the trigger, but he could hear the New Year's countdown beginning to start. Everyone shouting as the clock reached closer and closer to midnight. The people above him began to move closer towards the windows to watch the finale of the fireworks, the target along with them. We have a very small window to take out a very bad dude, he heard Schlatt snap through his earpiece, his impatience practically palpable now, before he ordered, Go loud, Blade. Techno let out a huff of frustration, moving his position to try and get a better angle on the target, pacing closer to the front of the room, but it was no use. He couldn't take the shot without endangering the kid, and if something happened to a kid because of him... The countdown finished, and the room erupted into cheer. Fireworks erupting in the night sky above Bangkok, and Techno pulled the gun from his shoulder, lowering it as his mind raced. Stand by, he said. Do not stand by, he heard Schlatt snap back at him. He should have known the man wouldn't care. He clearly had no empathy, and certainly not for children. After all, it was the center chief's fault that Filza had asked Techno to take care of Tommy back in Hong Kong. His fault that the old man had gotten no security assistance from the CIA whatsoever. His fault for endangering Tommy's safety. What was one more kid? Gun jammed, Techno said roughly, snapping the infrared monitor closed and tossing the rifle in one of the covered couches next to him. Back in his office, Schlatt's face twisted into a scowl as his rage began to boil, and he quickly grabbed the drink at his side, tossing it into the glass in front of him with frustration. The liquid splattered onto the clean surface, and as it began to drip down to the floor, he saw George cast him an unimpressed glance. Wilbur Soot, on the other hand, patiently waited on the dance floor for new orders as he watched what little time they had left to take out the mark, slowly slipping away from them, distantly wondering why his partner had disobeyed the direct order from the center chief. He didn't believe for a second that the gun had jammed, and he knew Blade could be suspended for such an action, or have his career terminated completely, but for some reason Wilbur couldn't help but feel the slightest bit of relief, knowing that he hadn't taken the shot. The action, worrying about hurting a kid of all things, came off as empathetic and soft, and although Wilbur hadn't really pegged Blade as the soft type, there remained something just beneath his hard, sarcastic exterior that Wilbur couldn't quite seem to place. And then the fire alarms began to blare. The music immediately died down, everyone on the dance floor freezing at once as the lights suddenly went dark and the red emergency bulbs began to pulse. Blade, was that you? He asked, but he felt like he already knew the answer. There was no doubt the deal between the buyer and their target had been called off now, but the alarms only gave them time. The element of surprise had been lost, and now Obsidian either knew they were there or he'd be living in a rush. Still, a mission was a mission. And although the syndicate agent had missed his first shot, Wilbur was sure his second was sure to be right on target. But when there was no reply from his earpiece, Soot couldn't help but feel a hint of concern, his fingers instinctively going to the pistol at his waistband. Blade, he repeated, glancing around the ballroom for the bright stain of a red suit. But Techno couldn't hear him. He discarded his earpiece along with the rifle, too annoyed with Schlatt to let him meddle in this job any further. Now his feet fell carefully in step behind Obsidian as he and his men began to make their way down the staircase. The darkness, along with the blaring alarms and the muffled sounds of fireworks, was enough to keep him from giving away his pursuit. And as he brushed past a girl with 2 long pins holding up her hair, he reached out and took one, sliding it from her bun inconspicuously. Yes, that's how you say that word. Then as he took up the rear of Obsidian's security team, he flipped the pin around in his hand and jammed the end of it into a bodyguard's neck. The man fell unceremoniously to the ground, no one the wiser, as he disappeared beneath the shadows of the dance floor. Then, as they passed a table, Techno found himself palming a dinner knife before walking up to the next man and stabbing it into his chest. He was only a few feet away from the target now, the back of the man's white suit shining through the throng of people, when he spotted a bottle of champagne to his left, still sitting on an ice bucket. He picked it up on his way He picked it up on his way by before raising it over his head. His stealth was about ruined, his mission exposed, but it was better to start making some noise now before the shooting began. Otherwise, this night would end with more than just their target's blood being spilled. So, he brought the bottle down on the nearest guard's head, letting it shatter loudly as the man fell to the ground, before turning toward the next one. The man in black was already raising a gun at him, but Techno grabbed his wrist before he could bring it all the way up all the way, and a shot rang across the ballroom, the bullet embedding itself into the floor. People began to scream, but Techno had already shoved the broken end of the champagne bottle into the guard's neck, taking the gun as it slipped from the dead man's hands. At this point, Obsidian had turned back to look at the commotion, his security forming a tight circle around him. But before Techno could get any closer, he heard more shots ring out behind him. He whirled around just in time to see Soot, pistol raised toward a spot at his back, and realized that the other agent had just saved his life, gunning down a security guard who was about to shoot him. His eyes met his partner's gratefully. Although Soot's gaze was practically screaming, "You just had to go off book, didn't you?" before he was suddenly tackled to the ground by another security guard. Techno wasn't too worried, however. He was sure floral suit could handle himself. For now, he turned back toward the target, whose bodyguards were currently raising their weapons toward him, but Techno wouldn't give them an inch. He raised his aim right in between Obsidian's eyes, but before he could pull the trigger, a guard grabbed his wrist, shoving it downwards. Unfortunately for him, Techno buried the clip into his chest, the man stumbling backwards before Obsidian tossed him to the side. Techno tried to raise his gun again, but this time, someone grabbed his arm from behind. He felt the man's hand slam down on his, knocking the weapon from his grasp before turning his own gun on Techno, but the agent used his momentum against him, punching him in the face before grabbing a hold of his arm and leveling it at Obsidian. The target was quick to react, however, and dragged one of his guards in front of his body just as the shots rang out. It occurred to Techno that Obsidian must have a keen instinct for self-preservation, using his goons like disposable body shields. As he watched the target toss the now limp body into the wall of glass behind him, it shattered, a bluster of wind flowing into the hall just as the target followed after him, jumping from the building without hesitation. Techno tossed the guard he'd been holding aside as well, throwing him over his shoulder and slamming him into the ground before taking his gun and putting a well-placed bullet through his heart. Skillfully, he dropped out the clip to see how many bullets were left, before sliding it back into the chamber with a gentle click. Then, before he could think about it twice, he ran full speed out the window, jumping after Obsidian and onto the firework barge just below. It was a rough landing, but just as Techno was picking himself off of one of the still simmering pipes, a metal bat struck him across the face. He turned back just in time to see Obsidian and tried to raise his gun at him, but he felt his vision going wonky, everything suddenly looking a lot closer than it should be. He tried to pull the trigger, but his adversary had already grabbed onto his wrist. He landed a punch across Techno's face, leaving his ears ringing a little as he tried to pry his fingers off the gun. But Techno wasn't going to let him have it. Instead, he looked the blonde directly in the eye as he pressed down on the release, the magazine falling onto the ground before he kicked it away, the clip disappearing into the smoke. Then, expertly, he removed the slide, leaving Obsidian with the empty shell of a gun as he stepped away from the man. Obsidian smirked appreciatively, leveling the pistol at Techno playfully and mouthing a smug "pow" before finally tossing it over his head. Fireworks were still erupting around them, green and red sparks falling around their heads before dissolving into ash, golden light glancing off their features, but Obsidian didn't make another move towards Techno, and Techno was still partially recovering from that metal pipe to his head, so they stood there in silence for a moment, both of them studying the other intently. Finally, Obsidian tilted his head to one side, his white suit now dirtied with soot, before saying, "You know, I know who you are." Techno's eyebrows furrowed together. He seriously doubted that. No one knew who he was. He barely knew who he was. "Your syndicate blade," the target finished. "Well, shit!" Techno felt his breath get caught up in his lungs, his mind racing with the possibilities of what else the man knew about him. If he knew he was Syndicate, then he definitely knew about Phil. And if he knew about Phil, then... "They didn't tell you who I am, did they?" Obsidian said, his smug smile saying it all. "I know something you don't. I know something you don't. I know something you will never know." Oh, I love this. Are we enjoying this so far, chat? A lot of action going on. Should have put a thing for killing and, you know, whatever. They kill people. It's okay. They're no names. Yeah? Awesome. Where did I leave off? I know, they didn't tell you who I am, did they? Obsidian said, his smug smile saying it all. I know something you don't. Techno just shook his head, his trigger finger getting itchy. Why did I say that wrong? Techno just shook his head, his trigger finger getting itchy. He wished he still had that gun on him. The rest of this night would probably go a lot smoother. Then again, he had a feeling that no matter what he did, nothing from this point on would be going as smoothly as he planned. It was starting to look like he was ringing in the new year with a shitty job and bad luck. They never do, he replied finally. The man smirked, giving him a small nod of understanding before saying, I'm Syndicate Puns. Techno felt something in his chest sink. Something he'd been dreading for a long, long time. You're Syndicate. You'll be disposable. They sent you out to kill one of your own, Puns continued before stifling a sigh. But that's probably not gonna make you walk away, is it? There were a million reasons why they could have sent Techno after him, but the first explanation was the most obvious. Who was to say that the man hadn't gotten his hands on some valuable government secrets and was about to sell them away to the highest bidder? Who was to say that he wasn't going to use the information to threaten people or hurt people or hide behind like a shield? All Techno knew was the job, that this was the job that he'd been given, and that he wasn't sure he wanted to risk trusting someone from the Syndicate. They'd all been criminals in the past. Who was to say they wouldn't also be criminals in the future? He watched as Puns peel off his white suit jacket, tossing it aside as he began to roll up his sleeves. Techno could tell that he already knew the answer, that he could see every thought churning in Techno's head. Still, it didn't stop the Asian from flexing his fingers as he replied. Probably not. Then he lunged forward. This music is so sad to be this. What if I just added a music? Don't mind me. Don't mind me. This is a this is a great song to... Hold on, I'll add it to the lore playlist. Yes, this is the fighting song. Other Side. You love puns? Thumbs up. Smiling emoji. Then he lunged forward, taking his first swing at the man, and the fight slowly descended into a battle of strength and speed. The man was good, and he definitely fought like Syndicate, many of his moves and jabs emanating Techno's own training. But that didn't give him the upper hand. If anything, Techno knew what to expect, and he was able to counter many of Puns' moves with ease. At one point, Techno managed to tackle him to the ground, but Puns quickly threw him off, both men scrambling to their feet before Puns grabbed him from behind and slammed him into one of the firework pipes, just as it launched a rocket into the air. The shrieking sound left Techno's eardrums ringing, but it also gave him an idea. He quickly slammed his elbow into his opponent's nose before grabbing his face and pulling it down on top of one of the pipe's openings. The firework immediately sparked, hitting Puns directly in the side of his face, the man screaming in pain as Techno pulled him away and tossed him to the ground. Puns slowly staggered to his feet, his left cheek now blackened with burns and ash, before flinging himself back at Techno. He slammed him into the corner of the barge, his fist coming down on Techno again and again, before Techno finally managed to grasp onto a box cutter to his right. He shoved Puns backwards, backing him into more metal pipes before finally finding enough footing to drive the knife into his side, twisting it in before yanking it out and taking a step back, breathless. Puns slowly slid to the ground, a red stain beginning to blossom across his white shirt, his hands naturally traveling to his side to try and staunch the wound. The firework finale had finally reached its end, the last golden sparks finally fizzling out around them as Techno reached into his pocket to grab a handkerchief. If your Syndicate, who recruited you, he asked Puns, glancing down at his bloody hands and attempting to wipe the red stains from the box cutter as best he could. He couldn't leave any evidence of himself. No bloody fingerprints. No murder weapon. What happened to Wilbur? He's still in the building. Don't worry. Wilbur's fine. If your syndicate, who recruited you? He asked Puns, glancing down at his bloody hands and attempting to wipe the red stains from the box cutter as best he could. He couldn't leave any evidence of himself. No bloody fingerprints, no murder weapon. The dying man took a shaky breath, but still managed to lift his head and reply. Watson, he murmured. Same as you. Where'd you train? Darkside, Tel Aviv, Puns whispered, his voice growing softer as more blood pooled around him. Same as you. Shit, Techno thought again, nodding absently. This wasn't good. This was far, far, far from good. I've got all the answers because I'm telling the truth, Puns murmured. And if Techno didn't believe him, as Techno had to believe him, they're not. Techno didn't say anything, continuing to wipe the blood from the box cutter, his mind spinning a million different ways. Who was he supposed to trust now? Who was he supposed to believe? As if reading his mind, Puns suddenly leaned forward, leveling a glare at Techno and growling, Schlatt is a piece of shit. That's why I'm sitting here in my own blood, and you're probably next. Techno lifted his arm, chucking the box cutter over the side of the barge and hearing it splash distantly into the water. There could be a very good chance that Puns was right. After all, Schlatt was a piece of shit. No one was arguing with that. And if they'd sent Techno after Puns, who would they send after Techno? And more importantly, why? Hey, Puns murmured, as if he'd just remembered something, reaching up and fumbling with his medallion around his neck. He managed to get a grip on it, through his fingers, though his fingers were slick with his own blood, and used what remained of his strength to snap it off, holding it out to Techno. Take this, he said, his breaths becoming more and more ragged by the second, and bring the bastard down. Techno stared at him blankly for a second. Was he serious? That bit of gold metal had just killed him, and now he wanted Techno to take it? To risk his ass? And for what? I don't want it, he said, I don't want it, he said firmly, watching his Puns struggle to keep his hand lifted, the strength slowly ebbing from his body as more and more blood spilled onto the ground. You trust Schlatt? Puns asked sincerely, eyebrows raising with a sincere question. With a second why can't I read? Yo! I watched Cape! Thank you so much for the follow. Welcome to the stream. We're reading the chapter 2 of Pinkman, a fic that Danny and I have written. Techno just impaled... oh, thank you so much for the hydrate. Technoblade just impaled Puns. Delicious. I love water. You trust Schlatt? Puns asked sincerely, eyebrows raising with a second question. Are you an idiot? Techno avoided his gaze. He didn't want any part of this. He didn't want any part of this. Puns let his head fall back against the metal pipes, his hand still outstretched to Techno, the medallion still dangling between his fingers. Just take it, he insisted, on what could very well be his last dying breath. Please. It was that last word, that last desperate plea that pushed Techno over the edge. Men like him, men like Puns, they didn't say things like please. They kept their begging and their hollow apologies for the gates of heaven, not for anyone else, and certainly not for each other. This medallion had to be more than just secrets if it was worth this man's life. And the next ones as well. Unfortunately, that meant that Techno was the next one. Okay, you know what? Techno said begrudgingly. Begrudgingly. Yep, I know how to read, Danny, I promise. Leaning forward and grabbing onto the golden disc. There, you go. I took it, okay? Pun's hands dropped to his side with relief. And Techno watched as a smile slowly spread across his lips. You give him hell, Blade, he breathed. Techno stared at him, knowing what came next, but he still couldn't help the wave of nausea that ran through him as Pun's head lolled to the side, his eyes becoming cloudy and unfocused as his last breath finally left him. He grit his teeth, his jaw clenching as he looked down at the necklace that Puns had given him. running a finger along the edge before finally closing his fist around it. Whatever mess he'd gotten himself into, he had a feeling it was about to get a whole lot messier. Rip puns. Can we get some L's in the chat for puns? Blueberry has redeemed touch grass. Okay. I'm gonna go touch grass now. I touched the grass. L. L's for puns. He died. R.I.P. the puns. Rip puns, you will be missed. It's a shame you won't be around for the rest of the fic. It's okay, guys. Techno will make sure you won't die in vain. Did I forget to turn off the sound alerts? Jeez! That frightened me. Bruh. Not like this. Not like this. Yo. Pog champ. Let's go, boys. Let's go, boys. Puns is a material girl. Yeah, too bad he's dead, though. Sorry, I'm being mean. I'm being mean. But guys, that's the... I told you I was evil. Oh my gosh. Blueberry on that evil arc? I freaking knew it. Okay, guys. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Alright, we're back with Wilbur. Wilbur hadn't had much trouble with the security guard that had tackled him. Fighting him off had been easy enough. But if you counted going 10 rounds with a champagne saber easy... Oh, wait. I know how to read. Fighting him off had been easy enough. If you counted going 10 rounds with a champagne saber easy. But in the end, Wilbur had managed to shove the man against the table and slit his throat just in time to see his partner dive out the window after their target. Blade! Oh, you've got to be kidding. Wilbur grumbled before glancing around the room. Everyone else had already filed out of the building, leaving him to stand alone among the several dead men in the empty ballroom. Still breathless from the fight, he warily tossed the saber aside, reaching down to pick up his handgun before finally making his way over to the shattered window. He glanced down at the firework barge below and swore he could see a flash of red and white dancing through the sparks and smoke, but as he took in the distance between himself and the ground, he frowned and quickly muttered, "Oh, hell no." Which is why by the time he got into ground zero of the battle, the fight was already over. He had his gun raised as he stepped onto the barge, ready for anything, but when he saw the target splayed out on the ground, lying in a puddle of his own blood, he simply turned to look at Blade with a mild, annoyed expression. "Very discreet," he commented sardonically. Blade barely cast him a second glance, stuffing his hands in his pockets and staring at the dead target blankly. "I thought this would be cleaner," he said dryly. Wilbur scowled. "It wasn't," he retorted, walking over to the target and placing a hand on his chest, though his wide blank stare already told the agent everything he needed to know. After waiting a few seconds for any pulse or sign of life, he finally lowered his gun, reaching up to his earpiece and murmuring, "We're Romeo," a code that meant the mission had been completed. "He said he was Syndicate," Blade muttered, his eyes still trained on the dead man's face as Wilbur took a couple steps back to stand beside him. "That wasn't in the mission folder," Wilbur said matter-of-factly, pulling out his phone to take a picture of the scene, the agency no doubt wanting photographic proof of termination. His reports were nothing if not thorough. SBI Sunday time, baby. Yes! Alico, what are we reading this time? We're reading chapter 2 of The Pink Man. We're reading chapter 2. So you're going to be getting spoils for this chapter if you haven't read the first part of it. We did read two other fics before this. Yes, it is very hype. It is very, very hype. Okie dokie. Oh man, I didn't finish reading it. Alico, you put the L in Alico. How could you not finish reading? I'm kidding. You probably have like uni stuff or something going on. It's okay. I do too, but I'm just avoiding it. No problem. I'll stick around anyways. PogChamp. All right. Actually, I put 2 L's in Alico. 3 if you count Alico Live. He knew who I was, Blade continued, and Wilbur was starting to get the impression that these statements weren't statements at all, but a test. A test for what? He wasn't sure, but he leaned forward. He leaned forward toward the target all the same, trying to get a closer image. Maybe he had access to stolen intel, Wilbur finally suggested. I'm Syndicate. There is no intel, Blade murmured. Wilbur blinked for a moment, realization striking him before he whipped his head toward his partner, finally managing to wrap his head around the crux of what Blade was trying to tell him. If tactical operations had sent Blade to kill one of his own, then what did that mean for him? Would he be next? And if so, who was he meant to trust? Wilbur wanted to open his mouth, to tell him that he had no idea why the agency had sent Blade after a member of the Syndicate, and that he had nothing to do with it. But if orders really came down from an on high to kill the man standing next to him? From on high, yeah. From on high to kill the man standing next to him. He wasn't so sure he would be able to keep that promise. The look in Blade's eyes seemed to understand this all too well. A small sympathetic smile playing across his face. Is that supposed to be splaying? I'll fix it later. Before he cast Wilbur one final glance, and Wilbur could practically hear him say in that gruff, sarcastic drawl of his, "Watch your back." Then he was suddenly turning away from him, the words of warning still ringing in Wilbur's ears as his partner began to retreat into the smoke. If he didn't know any better, he'd say that the agent was concerned about him, like he actually gave a shit about what happened to Wilbur's floral printed ass. And Wilbur suddenly felt the need to reach out and stop Blade, to demand an explanation. But his partner had already disappeared beyond the barge, probably running off to whatever rendezvous he'd been given by their superiors. "It's ours now, Agent," Wilbur suddenly heard one of their operatives say from the corner, but he was still staring after Blade, an ominous chill beginning to crawl up his spine. "Watch your back." But what for? Why him? The operative waited a moment longer before repeating, "Agent, I heard you," Wilbur said absently, stuffing his phone back into his pocket before finally turning to look at the man and saying quite bluntly, "I just chose to ignore you." And before he really knew what he was doing, he was following after Blade. Twins duo in this fic is so good! I'm gonna eat this. I'm eating it. So good. Hold on. Sorry, things are happening. What do you want from me? Why are you pinging me? Okay. Sorry, gang. Had some stuff going on in Discord. Okay. In his office, Schlatt waited patiently as his operatives inspected the dead body of Syndicate Puns, picking through his person and slowly removing anything worth of note. A watch, a smartphone, a lighter, a pen, but lo and behold, no necklace, no medallion, and no hidden intel. "No joy. I repeat, no joy," Schlatt finally heard Connor say through the speakerphone on his desk. He kept staring at the floor as his agent waited for a response, but Schlatt didn't give him an answer. Instead, he just slowly reached over to pick up the phone from its cradle before placing it back down with a soft click. He glanced over at George, whose irritated expression already said it all, but Schlatt didn't care, snapping, "This is why I wanted the Syndicate program made extinct. I want nothing left of that old regime." He knew times were changing in the CIA. Gone were the old strategies of secret groups and covert operations. He wanted to instill new tactics and methods that would allow the agency to operate as its most efficient in any situation. But unfortunately for him, that sometimes meant breaking the rules in order to do so. And if anyone got their hands on the information in that medallion... George looked out through the glass window, taking in a deep breath as he attempted to word his next sentences very carefully. He already understood what kind of mood Schlatt was in, and didn't want to worsen it by saying the wrong thing. "These things take time, Schlatt," he started gently. "There are politics to unravel." "Get out." Schlatt interrupted coldly. George blinked, staring at him for a moment before saying, "What?" What is the George voice? What? What? Get out, the chief repeated, shooting George an icy glare. His subordinate rolled his eyes through his dark bangs before finally crossing the room and exiting through the glass door, letting it shut quietly behind him. Schlatt didn't even bother to cast him a second glance, his mind already churning with the possibilities. If the intel had been lost somewhere within the ballroom, it could be easily recovered, but if someone had taken it, his thoughts froze. Punz had been Syndicate, and the last person to come in contact with him was Blade, who was also Syndicate. They weren't supposed to know of each other, or even operate within the same lines. But could it be possible that Punz had revealed his identity to Blade? Or maybe the target had somehow convinced Blade to take the intel? If so, did that mean he was no longer a reliable agent? Or could Schlatt trust that he'd stay loyal to the agency? But the chief doubted that he was even loyal to the agency to begin with. He was a criminal, born and bred to betray. And if his actions tonight had told Schlatt anything about the man, it was that he had no problem disobeying orders. He quickly stood, pulling out his phone and dialing the number. If Blade was no longer on his side, he'd figure it out himself. Fireworks continued to pop as Technoblade made his... I said Technoblade. It's just Techno. Fireworks... Whoa. Okay. Fireworks continued to pop as Techno made his way through a crowd of loud, colorful dressed people. He suddenly felt grateful for his red suit, which allowed him to slip easily into the background, and he knew it would be practically impossible for anyone to tail him, including Soot, who, he had an inkling, would try to follow him. Still, a million thoughts a minute ran through his head as he walked, the medallion now firmly placed in his pants pocket. He knew he had to get rid of it as soon as possible. If anyone found it on his person, he'd be more than just compromised. He'd be a traitor. He knew, of course, that Schlatt was an asshole. Punz had been right. Techno trusted the guy about as far as he could throw him, but there was obviously something bigger going on behind the scenes that he didn't know about. If so, did Phil know about it? Did Phil know about it? Did he know that Syndicate members were being hunted by each other? Techno found it hard to believe that the old man wouldn't keep him in the know. He turned down a side street, feeling himself slip further and further away from the party, losing himself in dank alleyways and narrow streets, before he finally felt his phone begin to buzz. He looked down at the number before shaking his head and hitting the accept button. Blade, he answered flatly. Want to explain whatever that was? Schlatt. Techno tossed a cautious look over his shoulder, just to double check that no one was following his footsteps before turning back around. Gun jammed, he replied, the lie coming back to him easily, there on his lips before the center chief had even bothered to ask the question. It was a dumb question anyway. He was sure Schlatt knew exactly what had happened, but that didn't stop the center chief from dryly replying, "That doesn't qualify as an explanation." "Maybe on a secure line?" Techno inquired, trying his best to stall for time. The longer he dragged out this conversation to its inevitable destination, the further away he could get from the other agents that were no doubt going to be sent after him. "I need status report. Insecure line," pushed Schlatt impatiently. "Did the target say anything to you?" "Well, he was dead," Techno started as he sidled. What is this word? Sidled up to a small gap between two buildings. I'm just making up words now. "I know the English language," carefully glancing around before placing the phone between his cheek and shoulder. Then he carefully reached down and pulled the medallion from his pocket, fiddling with the etched-in grooves as he inspected the object, trying to find what was so special about it. "So, no." "What about pocket litter?" he heard Schlatt ask, just as he slid his nail along the outer groove of the necklace. "Did you get anything off his body?" At that, the top medallion popped open, revealing a small chip slotted in the center of the gold medal. Techno picked it out carefully with his calloused fingers, turning it over carefully as he examined it, Punz's blood still underneath his fingernails. "Blade, did he have anything on his person that you now have that you'd like to give to me? Schlatt asked slowly. Oh, Techno wanted to give him something. A foot up the ass being one of them. But he didn't say anything for a moment, carefully placing the chip back in its place and pocketing the medallion once more. Then, finally, he asked, who was he? There was a pause that eliminated any doubt left about what Puns had told him, before Schlatt finally replied, a bad guy. Carrying, Techno pressed, bad shit. He didn't say anything, his eyes suddenly falling on a man passing by. He noted he was about his size, with the same build. Last chance, Blade, he heard Schlatt say. Last chance. This was it. He could still hand over the medallion and get on a plane and fly to whatever next job was waiting for him in Soot. And for a moment, Techno thought that it might not be so bad. The agent was clever, and he'd certainly had his back tonight. And Techno wondered what that would feel like, to have someone always around to always have an eye out for you. I'm going to read that again because I feel bad for not saying it right. The agent was clever, and he'd certainly had his back tonight. And Techno wondered what that would feel like, to have someone around to always have an eye out for you, to rely on each other. But his mind was already made up. Puns had been just like him. Syndicate. Disposable. And Techno had too much self-preservation to want to find out what would happen if he just buried his head in the sand and pretend like the agency hadn't turned on them. Basically, he wouldn't be able to sleep if he let this one go. And Techno really, really liked his rest. In fact, he was pretty sure he needed a fucking nap already. So when Schlatt said last chance, there really wasn't a question as to what came next. He simply replied, understood, before lowering the device from his face and hitting end call. He knew that probably pissed the center chief off and that he'd be on the run from here on out. And being on the run meant a costume change. Techno looked down at his now ruined blazer, firework sparks creating patchy burns on the fabric, and he quickly raised an eyebrow back toward the man who'd been passing by. He was wearing a black and red jacket, and Techno quickly called out to get his attention, digging into his pocket before holding up a wad of cash and asking, "You a 42 regular?" After changing, all too happy to be out of his flashy red agency-issued suit, he quietly slipped into an internet cafe, walking through the endless rows of PCs and passing late-night gamers who would rather spend their new year racking up levels than going out to party. He quickly found an open seat between two people and swiveled his chair toward the monitor, reaching down and pulling out the Ethernet cable before continuing any further. The last thing he wanted to do was be traced. Or even worse, expose sensitive government files to the world's endless supply of hackers. Only then did he finally dig into his pocket and pull out the chip, plugging it into the PC and letting the files open up on the monitor. He was greeted with several folders, most of them locked, and tried to click on one to open it, but as he did, a caution button popped onto his screen. Enter authentication key. Whoa, I said authentication. Enter authentication. We literally had a whole thing about this word, and I'm literally slipping up on it. Enter authentication key. You have 3 tries remaining. Just then his phone started to buzz again, and he reached down to dig around in his pocket, figuring it was just Schlatt and planning on ignoring the call. But once he saw the contact readout, he felt himself falling back into his chair and letting out a sigh as he put the phone up to his ear. Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear my voice getting tired? Yeah, he said heavily. Who's up in 5? He heard Soot say from over the line before tagging on, Schlatt's been calling. We spoke, Techno replied shortly, still staring at the empty password box, trying to dream up the millions of combinations of characters the code could be, but not having a clue where to start. Then softly he added, You should go on without me. There was a pause that Techno wished was less telling than it seemed to be. But he couldn't help but pick up on the hint of concern in the other agent's voice as he said, You sure you want to do that? Techno didn't say anything. The silence was enough of an answer. What happened with the target, Blade? He heard Soot ask, his voice sincere, his question urgent, before saying firmly, Tell me what I don't know. Techno continued to stare at the monitor in front of him, the blue light boring into his eyes. It wasn't like he couldn't use the help, or the backup, and he'd be lying if he said a part of him didn't want it. But more than that, he knew he couldn't drag Soot into this. He could already feel the water rising up around him. He could feel himself beginning to sink, and he wasn't the type to drag others down with him. This was his mess, and if he was going to solve it, he'd have to do it alone. Besides, the sincerity in his partner's voice told him that he hadn't known about any of this, that he was clueless as to the true nature of their mission together, which also meant he still had a chance to escape all of this without suspicion. Techno had already caused him enough trouble as it was, and it was better to just let this one go, no matter how much Techno would miss his stupid British accent. Well, that's the problem, isn't it? He said finally. And before the other agent could reply, he pulled the phone away from his ear and hung up. Then he turned to his right toward the gamer next to him, noticing several candy rolls of Smarties sitting at his elbow. He snatched one up before saying, "Hey, pal," holding up his phone and the roll of candy to the man, and asking, "Want to trade?" The gamer, headphones over his ears and eyes fixated on his monitor, didn't hear him, too engrossed in his game. So Techno simply shrugged and laid the phone down in the Smartie's place before pushing out of his chair to stand. They are twins duo. They are twins duo, and oh, them. I cared them. Aww. On the other end of the phone, I'm happy you didn't include that the man was playing League. Yeah, Danny, they were playing League of Legends in the gamer room. The arcane game of Legends. Well, now I thought about it. Oh my gosh. Nah, we can save the League of Legends references for Guns for Hire. You saved us all. Oh my gosh. On the other end of the phone, Wilbur slowly pulled the device down from where it had been pressed against his cheek, watching as the words "call ended" flashed across his screen before Blade's contact faded back into his home screen. He was standing on a helipad, high up in the Bangkok skyline, his floral suit still draped over his shoulders, the corners of which kept folding in the wind. He glanced back at the helicopter, its blades still turning, and couldn't help the sinking feeling in his stomach. They were supposed to be partners, to take their next mission together, and the next, but now, after a single night of work, Wilbur had already been abandoned by who was meant to be his most trusted ally. But there was something in Blade's voice when he picked up the phone, something about the hesitation of his words and the bluntness of his answers that had thrown Wilbur off. There was a reason he was doing this. There had to be. But whatever it was, Wilbur just wasn't seeing it. Well, that's the problem, isn't it? Shit, Wilbur murmured softly as he stuffed his phone away in his pocket and began walking toward the chopper, his hair tossing in the wind the closer he got. Not that he had much of a choice. Orders were orders, and he didn't intend on losing his position anytime soon. It had taken him too long to get here. So if he was going to figure out what was going on, he'd have to do it his own way. Aw, yeah, I know. Blade just wants to take care of his buddies, man. Y'all ain't ready for chapter 3. I'll tell you that. Getting rid of the chip had been easy enough. All Techno had to do was buy an envelope and a couple of stamps before tossing the asset into the mail, leaving the rest up to the international postage system. It would be safer that way, and he'd known just the person to send it to. After all, if anyone could crack a code, it would be her. Chapter 3 is so angsty. Yes. It's my favorite basic part. I love being basic. Oh wait, no, I'm based now. Danny called me based, guys. It's canon. I am based. I'm here to destroy the world? No. That's the Death Star's. That's the Death Star's job. After all, if anyone could crack a code, it would be her. Oh my gosh, I wonder who we're alluding to. After that, he picked a cell phone off an unknowing tourist and punched in the number he knew by heart. waiting for the familiar voice to come over the other side of the line. On the second ring, it finally picked up, and Techno was greeted with, "Max's fireplace and barbecue." He couldn't help the relief that filled his chest at the sound of Phil's voice. A nice comfort from the shitty New Year's he'd been having. "You Max?" he asked, the code greeting coming easily to his lips. "There is no Max," he heard Phil's reply, and Techno could practically hear the old man smirking on the other end of the phone. "So it's like, to the max?" he asked, unable to keep the smile from his own lips. "Yeah." Techno raised an eyebrow. "Why didn't you just say that in the first place?" "'Cause if something went wrong, I couldn't blame Max," Phil's quipped, and Techno could hear Tommy's sarcastic lit in his voice. That kid had more of an influence on Phil than the old man cared to admit. "How you doing, Phil?" he asked sincerely, ducking under a couple street market tents. It had been a while since they'd talked, longer than Techno had meant it to be. And based on his reply, he was sure Philza was thinking the same thing. "It's good to hear from you, kid," the old man replied, and even though Techno was plenty grown up, he found it somewhat endearing that Phil still insisted on calling him kid. "How's life in retirement?" he prodded. There was a beat before Phil replied, his tone somewhat somber as he spoke. "I'm headed to a funeral, putting a friend in the ground. I'm getting to that age, you know." But then, before Techno could offer any sort of condolences, he asked, "You working?" "Oh no, Phil says that." "You working?" Techno stifled a sigh. "I was," he murmured. "Got loud?" Philza asked suspiciously, and Techno should have known that the man could tell what kind of situation he'd got himself into just by the tone of his voice. "Yeah, it got loud," he replied before adding, Got real weird too." He passed by a string of lights hanging from the corners of a tent and tightened a flickering bulb on his way by, making sure it wouldn't shatter on the cobblestone if some kids happened to run through. "You know that guy that handed you your walking papers?" "Yeah, Schlatt," Phil muttered, his voice bitter, and Techno could tell that the man remembered Hong Kong just as well as he did. "Well, brace yourself, but he might be sideways," Techno commented. "I'm shocked," Phil replied, voice dripping with sarcasm. "What's your gut?" "My gut?" Techno repeated, just as he saw what he was looking for, a small abandoned buggy with a taxi sign on top. "It's my funeral you're going to be going to next." Wait, I said that's Techno's voice. "It's my funeral you're going to be going to next." There was an awful pause, and Techno suddenly wished he'd been less blunt about the statement, before he heard Philza finally say, "Give me an hour to find a local extraction team. Get mobile. You may have to hustle." Techno finally approached the door of the buggy, glancing around to see if the driver was anywhere nearby, but the market plaza had been all but abandoned. Everyone still enjoying the party as the last year faded into oblivion and the new one had yet to be ruined. "Let me ask you a question," he said to Phil, leaning down to turn on the buggy's... I know them. "Let me ask you a question," he said to Phil, leaning down to turn on the buggy's lights, the small vehicle lighting up like a Christmas tree before he straightened again. "Puns have a scar on his right chin?" Phil's reply came without hesitation. "Yeah." Techno sighed, leaning his elbow against the top of the taxi and looking down at his shoes, flecks of blood still coating the leather. "They just had me stick a fork in him," he admitted. "Pretense?" Philza asked curiously. "Some foreign op bullshit," Techno explained. "You know, they don't tell me much." He glanced over his shoulder as some voices rose up from the corner of the street, a group of drunk kids laughing to each other as they passed around a bottle of champagne. After he was sure they weren't a threat, he turned away again, telling Phil, "He gave me something they really want." He could hear the frown on Phil's face as the man asked, "On person?" "No," Techno quickly said. "Somewhere safe." "Good lad," Phil replied, and Techno couldn't help the sliver of accomplishment he felt whenever it came to making the old man proud. "Well, I'll do some checking," he continued. "I still have friends up in the food chain. Where are you?" "Bangkok," Techno said, and although he had never had anything against the city upon his arrival, he felt himself wanting to escape it as time dragged on. "There's an airfield near Chiang Mai," Phil instructed. "Get to it. Watch your back." "You too," Techno replied as he slid himself into the small blue taxi. "Hey, Phil, I know there wasn't some palm trees for a 1K plan for me, but, at least tell me you guys had some kind of exit strategy." "We never got that far, kid," Phil's replied gently, his voice somewhat sympathetic. "And now, probably not." Techno felt himself nodding, but it was like he was going numb. The job wasn't safe per se, but it was comfortable enough. The agency gave him something to do, and he did it without question. And in return, he got a place to sleep and food to eat. He didn't have to worry so much about his livelihood, unless it came at the end of a barrel, you know? But now, what was he supposed to do after all of this was over? If he didn't die first, of course. Got it, he said finally, though his voice came out soft and uncertain. I'm sorry, he heard Phil's a murmur, and then reassuringly, I'll be in touch. Techno waited a beat, neither of them quite able to be the one to hang up, before he finally said, beats being on the wrong side of the bars. Then, with that, he pressed the end call button and turned the key of the taxi cab, the small vehicle sputtering to life before Techno threw the gear shift into drive. George slowly made his way across the tile room of the bathroom, walking down to the end of the row before coming to a halt in front of the only closed door, stuffing his hands in his pockets. Why is it always the last stall? He asked, glancing down at Schlatt's expensive leather shoes, shined to extreme levels of pristine despite the setting they were currently in. Al Capone booth, Schlatt replied easily. I can see everything from here. George grimaced before taking a deep breath, preparing himself for the tantrum that was about to ensue, before finally informing the center chief. He blew off his exfil. Julie, I'm finally home. What are we reading? Pepper, I'm reading the last little section of the Pink Man, chapter 2. I need to go buy. Okay, bye, Blueberry. But Pepper, this is going to be on the VODs channel later this week, so you'll be able to go back and read the stuff that we were reading earlier. But we're finishing up Pink Man chapter 3. George grimaced before taking a deep breath, preparing himself for the tantrum that was about to ensue, before finally informing the center chief. He blew off his exfil. Son of a... Schlatt slammed a hand against the stall door before flinging it open, the toilet flushing in his wake as he brushed past George, saying, He's got it. Not necessarily, George argued, trying to keep himself neutral and reasonable as he followed his superior toward the sinks. But Schlatt was far too stubborn for his own good. Yes, necessarily, he snapped back. That knuckle-dragger sweated me on the phone. He knows, so... He quickly ran his hands underneath the water before pulling the paper towels aggressively from the dispenser. Never should have touched Watson's guys. They're all criminals, he shouted, slamming his hand down on the plastic, his anger at its brink. George raised an eyebrow, unimpressed with this outburst, before asking, You through? Schlatt said nothing, glancing over at George with an annoyed look. After a long moment, his subordinate sighed, placing his hands on his hips. What do you want to do? He asked. What we should have done from the start, Schlatt replied curtly, turning toward the mirror and adjusting his crimson tie. No, George objected quickly, shaking his head. Absolutely not. You had your shot, Schlatt informed him, pulling on his coat. Dream is a sociopath, George protested. Say that like it's a bad thing, he replied smoothly. It's a dangerous thing, George emphasized. He had methods. He has methods. Sociopathic methods. So sit on him, Schlatt snapped. The guy has a higher kill count than the entire Mossad. George rolled his eyes. Kill count didn't matter when the man could barely learn how to cooperate. But Schlatt carried on, turning to glare at him. I don't need Dream stable. I need him effective. But it was an impossible request. No one could control Dream, and George knew that better than anyone. Oh, end of chapter 2. We have comments already? Oh, Sana, my beloved. Shout out to the real one, Sana. Oh my gosh, my throat is so dead right now. Hold on, did I forget to open stream labels? I did. That's cringe of me. Such a good chapter. Yay! I'm so glad you liked it. Yes, thank you. Oh my goodness. Nova! You made it right at the end. It's okay. You're chilling. Oh my goodness. Anyways, go read Pink Man. Go read. I was asleep and wake up to... You were asleep? Lame. Yep. Yep. Guys, look. 40. We're 40 away. I'm freaking out. Can we hit it by my birthday? Can we hit it by my birthday? It's in 3 days. Anyways, anything going on Twitter? What's popping on the tweets, eh? Julie, I was asleep all day. I fell asleep around 2. What the muffin, dude? You like on the vampire arc? Jeez. Yeah. Yeah. So close. I know, we're so close. Ah! Vampire arc. I'm about to go on my passed out arc. Oh. You shared a tweet with me, Nova? Hey, yo. Oh, this is a very long thread. Sleep arc. Could be me. Could be me. Anyways, look at the art. Look at it. Everyone shut up and look at it. What? Look at it! Look at it! Look at it! Ah! Reasonable bedtime arc? What time is it? What time is it? It's like 10:46? Oh my gosh. Why do I feel tired? Guys, this is... Hold on. Guys. It's my back. Julie, stop promoting me? No. No. Anyways, guys, go like this. Go, if you have Twitter, go like this. Danny should be promoted. Yes, you deserve the promo. What the muffin, dude? Yeah, Sam retweets. Stop? No. Never. Dun, 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 dun. Good. Like it. Like it all. Spider in it. Guided evolution. That's a fanfic. That's in my mark for later. Skitty's on the timeline. I didn't. That's not me. That's not me. That's Allie's art. Actually, I gotta. Gurg. Gurg. Yeah, I do too. I gotta go to bed, guys. I gotta get up at like 6 in the morning. Cause I'm lame. But I'm gonna raid someone. The amount of global lag I have at the moment is unreal. Lamau. Alright, everyone say goodnight, Danny. I love you. This is to Danny and Danny only. Mm-hmm. Yes. Bye, Danny. Have good rest. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Alright, who shall we raid? Who shall I send y'all over to? Lame Berry? How dare you? How dare you insult me? Do do do. Who's doing chill stuff, huh? Who's doing chill stuff? Oh well, I guess I'll send y'all over to freaking... I don't know. What is she up to? Hold on, let's see. What is she up to? Oh my lord. This is a lot. That looks very chaotic. Trolling in Valorant. Chill Velo stream. You know what? I know who we're gonna raid. I know who we're gonna raid. Chalubi. He's been on He's been on the freaking timeline a bit for me. So we should go say hi to him. So guys, get out your handy dandy raid emotes. I'll send y'all over to Chaloobs. It's pretty cool. We're moots on Twitter. So, without further ado, you are beautiful, you're worthy, and I love you all very, very much. And will I be live tomorrow? I don't know. But join the Discord. Join the Discord. Subscribe to my YouTube. This will be on the VODs channel. So, shout out to the VOD viewers, eh? Y'all are real ones. Alright. I want to go now. I'm sleepy. You can feel the energy like dying over here. The energy never dies. What am I talking about? We live on. Woo! Also, Match and Vouch. Go check out. Stop, Al. You're gonna make me cry. Alright, bye Clover. Bye all. Bye everyone. Bye MT. Bye bye. Bye 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 bye. Bye.